Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before I may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, as I am sure you are all very well aware, tomorrow kicks off what will be a disastrous Republican National Convention, which is to be held in the town of Cleveland, Ohio. The reason that I say it is going to be a disaster before it's even kicked off is what happened in the Rules Committee over the weekend. It was disastrous. The close of last week showed that the detente wing of the gutless opposition party is ready to commit political suicide by tying their fate with the New York businessman, billionaire, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian Donald J. Trump, also known as John Barron and also known as John Miller. Of course, the reason I say that he is such a bad choice, and in fact the reason we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been warning about the looming disaster that is the New York Vulgarian for nearly a year now, is because he does not espouse conservative views. He's already come out and said that it's the Republican Party and not the Conservative Party. Then, to add insult to injury, he said that he doesn't even want nor desire any type of party unity, because he would be able to reach out to disenfranchised voters for Vermont Senator Nerdface Bernie Sanders, the flying saucer. He loves his sauce as long as someone else is paying for it. So he's going to go out and reach out for those voters who are disenfranchised and were supporting a self-avowed socialist. Does that sound like something that a true constitutional conservative would ever even fathom doing? Well, in my mind, no. In my mind, that tells us exactly who he is, what he has been planning, and what it is that he wants to see come forth in the Republican Party. Now, a lot of the fanfare that occurred before this thing even came to fruition, before we were going into the convention, there was this talk about selecting Indiana Governor Mike Pence to be Trump's running mate. Apparently this, according to the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, was some sort of olive branch to be reached out for truly angered constitutional conservatives. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Much like Trump, Pence started out as a Democrat. He then threw his morals and his constituents under the bus when he betrayed the Religious Freedom Act that was guaranteed to protect businesses from having to, for instance, bake a cake for a gay wedding if that went against their own moral convictions. Because remember that part of the whole thing with respect to the First Amendment is the protection of the free exercise of religion. By forcing private entities and businesses to bake a cake for a gay wedding, we are violating that. We are forcing people to go against their conscience, and that is being done by the tyrannical and heavy hand of government. That is so diametrically opposed to the foundational image that our founding fathers had for this country, dating back to its inception over 235 years ago. We have to keep all of these things in mind, and that is why I believe that we are still seeing a disaster unfurling before our very eyes with respect to this 2016 presidential election cycle. We had a constitutional conservative, and this was our election cycle to win, but we blew it. We blew it by selecting this orange-hued, basically closeted fascist as the presumptive nominee, and if the convention is unable to derail him, the true nominee of the Republican Party. But it's not the Republican Party of old. It's not the home of conservatives, because Trump himself said that it's not about conservatives, that it's not the Conservative Party, but the Republican Party. And of course, that brings me to one of the things that Ted Cruz was attacked for by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media at the opening part of the primary process, when he said that Trump espoused New York values. Of course, that came from a video where Trump himself admitted that he was pro-choice in every sense of the word, back on a Meet the Press interview in 1999. And we've discussed that on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, as well. So where we are now is in this untenable situation where the Republican Party is fast approaching a cliff, no one's behind the wheel, and it's about to fall into the precipice and abyss of death, destruction, anarchy, and chaos. And the tragedy is this all could have been prevented. It all could have been prevented, yet we see that they are still trying to go off on any type of erroneous thing to push a tyranny of false unity. Now, I've already seen members of the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or as it's referred to in the common vernacular as the so-called establishment wing of the Republican Party, say that this is the election to end all elections. That's the same tired rhetoric we've heard for the past 2 consecutive presidential election cycles, when we have been getting progressively further left with respect to the positions of the candidates and to their connection with the party platform. It didn't work in 2008, and it didn't work again in 2012, and they told us that Barack Hussein Obama would be the ultimate annihilation of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. Of course, here we are, some 8 years later, and that has not come to fruition. But we are battered and bruised. Yes, our Constitution is facing a crisis because the gutless opposition party, or GOP, is refusing to act upon the very mandate that the American people gave it. You see, we have fallen to such a point now that the Republican Party is no longer a political movement of ideas. Rather, it is a political party that just seeks to oppose someone without actually standing for anything. And in the past, what it really stood for was the Constitution. And that's what we need to get back to. That's why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have always said that the key to unlocking the problems and unlocking the chains and shackles that are holding back the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this country, we the people, from placing this country back onto the path to prosperity is none other than the Constitution. It's been with us since the inception of our country. But you see, the political powers that be, or those who currently wield the reins of political power, simply do not want to admit that that is the case. They do not want to be true to their principles and convictions. And so what we could really say that the 2016 presidential election cycle has come to stand for, and what is the true hallmark of it all, is that this is the election cycle where the Republican Party, or the gutless opposition party, has completely sold out its principles. It's turned its back on its base, and it is becoming a party that stands for nothing. But when a political movement and political platform begins to stand for nothing, then it really has no reason to exist. It cannot be victorious. It cannot put forth the political clout that's necessary to win on a national stage. And therefore, there has got to be a revitalization. Again, this draws me back to something that I said a long time ago, that Trump represents the new Herbert Hoover. Remember, with Hoover, they being the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who were hell-bent on, and are still hell-bent on, the complete and utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and a people, and it's just disgusting. Because what happened then is they were able to essentially make the conservative movement go into hibernation. They thought they had defeated it. And for many years they did. Because it wasn't until 1964 that the conservative movement began to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Now, perhaps we cannot afford to wait that long this time. In fact, I know we cannot afford to wait that long this time. But I think that the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty are sick and tired of the current state and status quo within the political arena. They're not going to tolerate these attempts to push towards a ever-increased totalitarian-style centralized government. You see, we have to get back to sanity. We have to get back to what matters, back to basics, as my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, likes to put it. And yes, we have to get back to that. But we can't do it by a false unity. We certainly cannot do it through a tyranny of false unity. And it's not just that it's limited to Trump. Trump's acolytes have been exceedingly destructive. They have not pushed for unity at all. They have not shown the type of political backbone and political impetus that is necessary to pull this movement over the finish line. In fact, after what was clearly a devised scheme to destroy any type of opposition within the convention by saying that people had to be bound to support a disastrous nominee, we see that the Trump train was essentially bragging about claiming that the Never Trump movement was never more. In fact, his campaign director, Paul Manafort, went on to the Fox News channel, which has essentially become a free super PAC and ad agency for the Trump campaign, to just maliciously claim and erroneously claim that Never Trump is never more. But don't just take my words for it. I'm going to go ahead and cue up a soundbite here where Manafort says this for himself, and I'm going to get that up right now.
Beat 16 other candidates in a record turnout of Republicans, won with the record number of votes, and they understood very clearly that denying Donald Trump the nomination through some backroom deal would have destroyed the Republican Party, and not just the presidential election, but probably the Congress as well. Wow. So it was never, ever a real opportunity. And yesterday, in the Rules Committee, there were two important votes. One was to unbind the delegates, to free them to, quote, vote their conscience, and that vote lost 87-12. We crushed them. The second vote was to let voters vote their conscience. They got even less votes, to the point they didn't even want a recorded vote. So as far as I'm concerned, the Never Trump movement is never more. So it's gone.
It's never more? It's gone? Is that really what he thinks? Does he really think that we're just going to give up? That's ridiculous. You know, his arrogance, that's something that just seems to run the gamut with respect to the Trump train. They just cannot get past their just horrific arrogance. And that's the problem that we face with it. Manafort thinks that Never Trump is just going to go away because he managed to use his Russian-style politicking, because we know that he has ties with Putin. We know that he has lobbied for Putin in the past to force these delegates to do things by threatening them. We know that there were Trump delegates who were sitting there saying that anyone who spoke out against Donald Trump at the convention ought to be hanged. That's what they said. This goes down the line of a well-established pattern that we have seen repeat itself ad nauseum with respect to the mafioso quafioso's bid for the White House. That of making death threats, that of being childish, that of being divisive. That's not what it takes to win elections. That's not how you're going to win the hearts of true constitutional compositionists. That's asinine. But here we are. That's what we're facing in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And so they think that they're going to wipe this out. I've got news for you. Even if they do wipe it out at the convention, there are so many of us who cannot stand Trump that find him to be just as much of a threat to the supreme law of the land, which, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 of our shared United States Constitution, is none other than that very Constitution itself, that feel that Trump and Hillary are an equal threat. They pose as equally significant of a threat to our way of life and to the proper scope and application of government as outlined and mandated by the clear and concise language within the four corners of the United States Constitution. That is the stark and harsh reality that we have to awaken to. And we have to be able to address this in a true, open, and honest fashion. And of course, you're not going to have anything that's open and honest as long as Trump and his Trumpery, meaning flashy but meaningless style, is allowed to be at the helm of the Republican Party. And of course, rinse and repeat us, it has done nothing to secure unity within the party, at least true unity. They come out and they say that they've done that. They pay lip service to it in a completely intellectually disingenuous fashion. But you know what? True, honest, constitutional compositionists like you and our cherished passengers list there are going to see right through that. They can't pull the political wool over your eyes because you have been empowering yourselves with the tools and the knowledge necessary to foment and to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our Constitution and thereby your fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Now that's something that Paul Manafort can't understand. And it's something that Mike Pence can't understand either. Mike Pence is not recompense for the disaster that is Trump. Trump is a disaster. Trump's not a conservative. And then Mike Pence, who claimed that he was against Common Core education, which is just an attempt by revisionist historians and social Marxists, as well as cultural Marxists, to indoctrinate the up-and-coming generations, and if they had their way, also those generations which have yet to be born, with this nonsense that will allow them to fundamentally alter our identity, both as a nation and as a people. You see, these are serious problems that we're facing. These are serious issues that need to be addressed. But the problem is we have people that are charlatans. They're fakes. They don't really stand up for or believe or represent anything. And that's where we are. That is the significant danger that we face in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And it's insulting that they think that by dangling Mike Pence in front of our face, that will somehow win over conservatives who feel as though, and rightfully so, that they've been pushed out of their own party. We've been told we're not welcome within the rank and file of the conservative, or once conservative, party. The Republican Party was always, except for the time that Theodore Roosevelt was in it, but it was always considered a conservative party. We need to get back to being the party of the Calvin Coolidge. We need to get back to fiscal responsibility, sure, but the way you do that is by going back to strict adherence to the clear and concise language within the Constitution. This really isn't rocket surgery. You don't need Dr. Ben I'm a Victim Carson to figure this out. And then, of course, Carson has been a huge disappointment throughout this entire election cycle. Did you know, folks, that he was actually a Democrat up until the point that he decided to throw his hat in the ring? So here we've got three Democrats, because Pence started off as a Democrat, Trump started off as a Democrat, and Carson started off as a Democrat, that are supporting the mafioso quafioso. You see, I'm seeing a common denominator here, and it's not one that looks good for true, principled, constitutional compositionists or constitutional conservatives. What I see here is a gaggle of people trying to irreparably harm the Republican Party, to make it become something that it was never intended to be. But that's where we are, folks. That is the just in disingenuous nature that is gripping the arena of American politics as I sit here and speak into this microphone, conveying this message unto you. But that does not mean that we give up hope. That does not mean that we simply bow down and capitulate to these people. They are not big enough to destroy this country. They do not have the political clout nor the political power to carry through with this. The only way that they are going to be able to do that is if we allow them to. And so, okay, that may mean that we have to vote against the Republican Party in this general election, which is slated for this November. There are third parties. There's the Constitutional Party, and then there's the Libertarian Party. And no, I don't like either one of those. Or you can write in, Cruz, if your state has that option available to you. But to sit there and say that this is the election cycle to end all election cycles, I think that's a bit overrated. I think that's a bit overblown. That's fear-mongering. Folks, the United States of America is great because we've been able to overcome every hurdle and obstacle that has ever been placed in our path. There is no adversity that is so great that it has ever conquered the indomitable and unconquerable spirit and will of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people. But the problem is we've been led to believe by the erroneous reporting and the propagandistic agenda foisted upon us by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media to buy into this belief that we don't have anyone on our side anymore, that we are a party that is, and not just a party, but a political movement that is endangered and is going to be extinct. That kind of defeatism plays right into the hands of the frothing of the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who are hell-bent on the complete and utter annihilation of the United States, both as a nation and as a people. Now, I know it sounds like I say this far too often on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, but it is important, and that's why it bears repeating here. Look, we have to stand together shoulder to shoulder, in solidarity and unity, to send a resounding message to these troglodytes like Paul Manafort, who is so smug that he thinks that he's done some great thing. And really he hasn't. And his connections with totalitarians should be sending up red flags and sounding off all sorts of alarm bells for any decent, hardworking, red-blooded American citizen that they cannot just destroy us. And that they are never going to be able to win a blessed thing without true constitutional compositionists. You know, it's to the point now where we have to reiterate a line of reason that must become the cornerstone of any future conservative movement. We have to get back to supporting the Constitution. You are either for the Constitution or you are against it. So with the case of Donald J. Trump, or is that John Barron or John Miller, I'm not sure which flavor of alter ego he has decided to use at this current moment, but he, in any of those iterations, is not for the Constitution. Therefore, he, and by extension, his followers, are not for the Constitution either. Because if you recall, back in 2012, Trump admitted in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media that he's never once read the Constitution from cover to cover because he didn't find any value in it. Now, that speaks volumes about the character of the man, or the lack thereof. And in fact, it truly is a lack of character. It truly shows that he is this disgusting quaff-waffle, the mafioso quaffioso, that's just out there for his own benefit and his own gain. And of course, he's used every opportunity to propel Hillary through. He is the one candidate of all of that litany of candidates, and that included El Jefe Jeb Bush, who is going to lose to Hillary Clinton. He has the greatest opportunity to lose to Clinton, and if by some cruel twist of fate he did manage to win the general election, it would still be a fiasco for true constitutionalists. Why? Because he's already said that he was going to continue to use Barack Hussein Obama's illegal use of executive orders and executive mandates to basically rule by executive fiat. That goes against everything that our nation is about. And yet we still have those who are pushing for a tyranny of false unity, saying that we don't know what we're talking about. Well, let's see. This same type of language was used in 2008. This same type of language was used again in 2012. And again, the Republican Party didn't stand for any political ideals. Rather, the Republican Party stood against someone. And how did that work out for us? Because I'm happy to see that Mitt Romney is in his second term by now, right? Wrong. Wrong. You see, when the Republican Party continues to betray its base, when it continues to distance and divorce itself from pushing for strict adherence to the clear and concise language contained within our shared United States Constitution, that's when we see this type of political destruction. That's when we see this type of carnage and chaos just reign supreme. This party truly stands for nothing. And now, with the bizarre ascendancy of the New York vulgarian, we see that many in the so-called conservative commensurate and punditry, that they don't really stand for it either. That it was all just a ruse to them, that they're all a bunch of self-aggrandizing hypocrites. Well, how does that serve the conservative cause? How does that help any of us? It really doesn't. That's the major and significant problem that we are encountering as I sit here and speak into this microphone. We cannot, we must not, and we will not give up on our true conservative principles, which are rooted in the natural law tenets that underpin not only our shared Constitution, but also our representative Republican form of government. But you see, the way that the Republican Party is acting now, it's not a Republican Party. It's not a party for limited government or a party that supports the notion of limited government. It has become a shell of its former self, and it has become a sick and twisted joke. And it turns my stomach to even think about it. But we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, continue to be dedicated to the one mission that we've always been dedicated to: giving you the tools that are necessary to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution, so that you can then stand up for your fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. And that is something we cannot ever relinquish or give up upon. And folks, if you thought that Paul Manafort and the Trump train had given up on this lunatic idea of appealing to the disenfranchised voters for a nerd-faced burn me Sanders, basically Manafort's come out again and said that this Trump-Pence connection is going to appeal to the disenfranchised nerd-faced burn me Sanders voters. Again, this shows that Pence is not what he claims to be. Pence is a guy that is just squishy. He's your stereotypical detente member of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. And that, too, is not serving the American people well. But that has become the new norm with respect to the Republican Party. They're not representing their base. They're not a party that stands for anything. And Pence is the perfect example of this. Pence, as you recall, had infuriated us in his very slow and tepid and almost reluctant, in fact, it was reluctant, coming out and endorsing Cruz. He waited until the last minute in order to sabotage Cruz. And now he's the vice presidential pick for the quaff waffler himself. Therein lies a problem, folks. It shows that there is no loyalty, that there is no belief within the rank and file of the so-called establishment of the Republican Party in the things that we hold near and dear about this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. I hate to say that, and I wish that I could come to you with words of solace, words of comfort that would be able to lift us above this. We can't give up. That's not within our spirit. That goes against everything that the United States of America has ever stood for and will ever stand for. But they are making it very damn difficult to be a conservative in modern America. They are the ones that have sold out. They have betrayed us, and they have done it time and again. They are no different than the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who seek nothing less than the complete and utter annihilation of our republic. And that is devastating. It's devastating to see that the Lion Branch Trumpidians continue to lie about everything, continue to try and say that we are just whining, that we are complaining, or in their vulgar terms, that we are butthurt. No. It's frustrating that they are unable to see the true extent of the danger that Trump and Hillary both represent. And one of the things that we are so sick and tired of hearing is that if we don't support the mafioso quafioso, somehow we are leftists ourselves. Somehow we are not conservatives. That it is conservative to march lockstep, to goose step in line with somebody who is wholly against everything that we hold near and dear. You know what? That's more of the tactics of Joseph Stalin. And so for the people that would say that, for the people that would dare deign that or dare attempt to insult us in such a manner, you can go straight to hell. Because you are the ones that are acting in an un-American fashion. You are the ones that are trying to sow the seeds of division. Your divisive tactics and strategies of divide and conquer, which is straight out of the playbook of Saul Alinsky, which is the Bible for the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists, will be your undoing. It will be. And when inevitable defeat will come, as it surely will, particularly with the pick of, little Pensy Pincer there, don't come crying to us. And certainly quit trying to lay the blame at our feet, because it is not ours. That burden to bear is your own. You paid for this, and you accepted for the price of your soul, not even 30 pieces of silver, but 30 pieces of dirty, dusty dandruff. That's on you. Own it. Because we don't support Hillary, and we certainly don't support her top donor. But you are the ones that want to sit there and deny that that is even a part of Trump's past. And then with Pence, Pence, a man who started off as a Democrat and then became a Republican, but then was wishy-washy on all sorts of things. Pence, he's not where he claims to be either, or who he claims to be either. He was always a weak one. Sure, he would play lip service to conservative causes like the Religious Freedom Act and like going against Common Core. But then he just turns his back on it. He just becomes the stereotypical detente member of the gutless opposition party. That is what has alienated the base from the party. And then the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives, who was never once a conservative himself, who in fact for the vast majority of his 70 years spent on Earth was a frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist, and has always given more money to frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialists, was able to get people so worked up, to get them so blinded by their raw rage and fury that they couldn't see the tree despite the forest. Or rather, they couldn't see the forest despite the trees. That's where we are. That's where we are. Why are we here? Why is it that we are the ones that are betrayed each and every time? Sure. We have the leftists trying to claim that they were betrayed, that their great, wonderful, marvelous hero in Vermont Senator Nerdface Bernie Sanders, a man who didn't even get his first paycheck until he was 40 years old, was betrayed. But the thing is, they're pushing for socialism. They're all pushing for the same thing. And it's like what the great visionary Zygmunt Dobbs said. The communists will always call each other comrades, even as they're killing each other, because they see a unified vision. There is no unified vision here. The frothing-at-the-mouth detente membership of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, is closer akin to the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialists than they are to true constitutional compositionists like you in our cherished listening passengers and audience. That's disgusting. But it is the truth, and we have to always adhere to the truth, because the truth always has a way of shining through. It always has a way of liberating us from this web of deceit, because it's as Aristotle said in his Art of Rhetoric, it's far easier for people to believe the truth than it is to get them to believe a fabricated lie. And that's where we are. That is where we are. Trump is a fabricated lie. This whole idea that Trump is this great businessman who is not going to be a threat, who's not going to push for totalitarianism or authoritarianism, that is a lie. Just look at the things he said. Look at the way that he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. Look at the way that his ardent followers are very reminiscent of Mussolini's black shirts, or the stormtroopers, the SA, the brown shirts of Hitler. That's where we are, folks. And unless and until we begin to really come to terms with this, we are still going to see this death spiral that is afflicting this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours not only continue unabated, but it is going to pick up in speed. It's going to accelerate exponentially. And it just means that the fight that's ahead of us becomes all the harder. Now, if there was one thing that my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, and I have oft-times reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, it's this. All of those Lion Branch Trumpidians that came out and claimed that they were angry, they were sitting there boasting about burning everything down, they haven't begun to see real anger yet. The real anger of the true, decent, hard-working, red-blooded American citizens who give a damn about the supreme law of the land will be a fire that scorches far deeper and scalds people far worse than this Trumper tantrum that has swept across this nation from coast to coast and border to border. Defeat is inevitable for Donnie. He's not even performing well against Hillary. Oh, sure, they're going to say that, well, he's very close, within 3 points in a couple of polls. He should be a lot further ahead. And she hasn't even had her convention boost yet. Yes, his numbers are going to look good after the convention when he gets that boost from it, that inevitable boost. But the fact of the matter is, there is so much baggage in Trump's closet that you ought to say that his closet's a cemetery with all of the skeletons that are stuffed away in it. Sure, he's going to sit there and say, I have a bigly closet. It's a walk-in closet. I keep my spare toupees there. I've got smally hands. I built a tower. Look at me. I'm wonderful. People love me because I've got this bigly beautiful brain. What is that? What is that? How is that inspiring people to follow him? How is that a spearhead for placing this country back onto the path to prosperity? Because if you look at the way Trump has engaged in business, it's by trampling on all of his business partners. It's by being a thug. It's by being completely intellectually disingenuous. He is not a good businessman. He is a good confidence man or a con artist. And he has pulled over the largest con in the history of American politics. That is the current state of affairs. That is what is plaguing this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. But of course, Rinse and Repeatus is going to sit there and use mob-like tactics to support the quafioso mafioso. Why? Why are they so dedicated to this? Well, it's because they don't give a damn about the supreme law of the land. They don't give a damn about the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. They don't care about us. But they do that at their own peril. And the reason that I say they do that at their own peril is because we are the true wielders of power here. And that is the natural law. The natural order of things that is the entire bedrock foundation of this country and is what basically hoisted this country to such lofty positions in our relatively brief yet illustrious history. And they are the ones that are turning their backs on it. And the world is watching. This is why you see the push for trying to get rid of our guns increasing. In fact, the leftists even tried to reach an olive branch out to Donald Trump because he was willing to join the no fly, no buy, and if you mention due process, we cry group. And so what? Somehow Pence is going to make up for that? Pence, again, is no recompense for this. The vice presidency doesn't matter. It's largely ceremonial anyway. The only significant role he plays is as president of the Senate. But if you recall, one of the things that Manafort was seeking was to have a vice president in which Trump could delegate positions to, that Trump could delegate the job to. I'm sorry, but that is unconstitutional. That goes outside the clear and concise language contained within Article 2, which defines and mandates the proper scope and application of the president. The enumerated powers to faithfully execute the laws and to be the commander-in-chief of our armed forces is not to the vice president, it's to the president. If Trump can't handle that, he should drop out. If Trump is truly patriotic, he should drop out. But we know Trump is not patriotic. We know that Trump doesn't give a damn about this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is the truth. And America needs to have a wake-up call right here, right now, as I speak into this microphone, because things show no signs of improving at any time in the foreseeable future. Why? Because the lion branch Trumpidians are suffering from acute ostrich syndrome, where their head is so far up their posterior that they think they see sunlight. But they don't. And they're going to drag down every one of us with them. But of course, because nothing can be their fault, and nothing can be the fault of their fearless leader, the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian, the three-faced Donald Trump chimera can do no wrong, it has to be our fault. It has to be their favorite scapegoats, the same favorite scapegoats that they have picked on in every successive election cycle that we've lost, on us, on the true constitutionalists. We're sick and tired of being your damn doormat. Go to hell. It is time that you accept responsibility and take accountability for your own words, deeds, and actions. And we are damn sure going to hold you accountable for it. We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, will not be silenced. We will continue to stand as we always have. You will not be able to bring us down. You are not big enough. You do not have the power, nor the authority, nor the wherewithal to do so. You know, with Pence, he's also got the claim of adulation from the other orange Trumpalumpa, that of former Speaker of the House John Crimea River Boehner, who said he's a gifted communicator and a principled conservative. He may be a gifted communicator, but the problem is he's sold out time and again, just like Trump has sold out. So here we are. We are nowhere near having any unity, and they are still going to try and push for a tyranny of false unity to try and claim that they somehow know what's best for the country and that we just need to sit down, shut up, and stand in line. Well, no. Enough is enough. We do not have to tolerate that. We do not have to accept that, and we damn sure aren't going to. This is our country. The Constitution belongs to us in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. And the problem is, the gutless opposition party, rinse and repeat us, Donald J. Trump, they have either forgotten it, they don't care, or they never knew, or some combination of the three. This is the Hydra that we face. This is the Leviathan of our modern age. This is what will threaten the true national character, heritage, spirit, and above all, identity of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. So that is why we must be stalwart and show these people that we cannot be taken for granted. And they are very slow learners. They should have learned this after the last two shellackings they received during 2008 and again in 2012. And then I see another rubbish line. The rubbish line that true conservatives didn't go out and vote for Mitt Romneykins because he was a Mormon. That's a red herring, folks. That is an intellectually disingenuous piece of rubbish that's thrown out not only by the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, but by the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, to try and deflect blame away from the fact that Romney was the architect of Romneycare, that Romney was not a conservative, and Trump is even less conservative than Mitt Romney was. If you recall, back in 2012, he said that Romney's self-deportation for that torrent of illegal aliens that are continuing to flood across our porous southern border was too mean-spirited. Oh, but now he's going to stand strong against illegal aliens. But then he's chosen Mike Pence to be his running mate, and Pence is for amnesty. He's for carte blanche amnesty. He wants to just throw open the floodgates and to turn the United States of America into Mexico dos, man. Well, no. You see, this is why we have to laugh at everything that the Lion Branch Trumpidians threw out as the reasons they were supporting Trump. Oh, well, Trump means it, what he says. Trump says it like he means it. No, he doesn't. Trump speaks out of both sides of his mouth. And then for Pence to just go in and support him, and in fact, Pence having the position that he did, if Trump's going to build a wall, why is he picking somebody who doesn't want one? Oh, is that the conservative position? No. In fact, this whole issue of the wall, you know where Trump got that from? It certainly was not his own idea. It came from Texas Senator Ted Cruz. You know, the one they called Lion Ted? Yeah. Oh, they don't want to mention that. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how it was disgusting what Donald J. Trump did to him and to his family. And how Trump wants to control what he says at the convention. This after he said that he couldn't speak at the convention, but then decided that he could. When in fact, Cruz had enough support to have that anyway by the rules. Oh, and by the way, whatever happened to that whole thing that Trump used to say that the system's rigged? Well, Trump's rigged it now. That's what we saw at the Rules Committee the other night. It's predictable. It's shameful. It's disgusting, but it was certainly predictable. We knew that was going to happen because they know that they cannot win with true, principled, constitutional conservatives. But they think they can attract enough Bernie Sanders voters? What sort of lunacy is that? Who in their right mind came up with that? Because they're lunatics. They are sheer, unadulterated lunatics that have no connection with reality whatsoever. And this is why my first officer, Jeremy Grapenden, and I have been warning about this for 11 and a half months now. These people think that they can control everything. They think that they can tell you how to live your life, that they can tell you what to believe. They want to control your thought. And yet that's one of the same things that they try to use as a scare tactic to say that if you don't support the mafioso quafioso, then it's Hillary Clinton and that it's your fault. No. The only ones that will be to blame for Hillary's victory will be those who supported the mafioso quafioso instead of listening. Pull your heads out of your posterior and listen. Donald J. Trump is just as bad as Hillary. Let me repeat that and slow it down for those who are a little bit behind on the learning curve. Donald J. Trump is not conservative and is just as bad, if not worse, than Hillary Rotten Clinton. Oh, but we're going to hear how unpatriotic we are from Rush Limbaugh. He'll tell us that we're just not getting it, that we're not seeing the big picture, that this is going to be a landslide victory for Trump. Just like he said that Mittens Romneykins was going to have a landslide victory in 2012, just like he said that John McCain was going to have a landslide victory in 2008. Are you starting to sense a pattern here? Because I sure am. Rush has been wrong each and every time in the last 2 consecutive presidential election cycles. And this is his 3rd strike. After that, he's out. People are not going to put up with this. People are sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of it. My first officer, Jeremy Grapenden, sick and tired of it. Our first air marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, is sick and tired of it. Just as I am sure you, our cherished listening passengers and audience members, are sick and tired of it as well. But they have taken us for granted for so long that they think they know what they can do and how to control this and to just make us sit down and shut up. Well, I've got news for them. It ain't happening, sweetheart. It just ain't happening. You know, since we're on the topic of Mike Pence, we see that one of the Branch Trumpidians, Scotty Neal Hughes, has said that Pence is the Pepto-Bismol vice presidential candidate. You know, when was the last time we heard some asinine statement like that? When was the last time that they tried to pin their hopes on a quote-unquote conservative vice presidential candidate that would somehow bring conservatives in? Oh, yeah, that would be 2008 with the Princess of Alaska, you know, hoes are there, Sarah Palin, you betcha. Oh, yeah. Another one who, in her last decision to throw out her bizarre endorsements, endorsed the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist governor for Alaska, or the candidate for it, the gubernatorial candidate that was a frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist, the one who tried to call us rats. Oh, by the way, the one who was thrown under the bus, who doesn't even have a speaking slot at the Republican National Convention. Yeah, that one, Sarah Palin. This is where we are. This is the problem that we face. There are so many people who have sold out, who every time come forth and claim to be conservatives, and yet they never are. Why? Why do they feel that it's necessary to lie to us? Don't we get enough of that from Barack Hussein Obama? Don't we get enough of that from Hillary Rotten Clinton? Why do we need to tolerate this from people that are supposedly within the same political party and the same political ideology that we are? Oh, but we're the ones that are wrong. We're the ones that are going to take the brunt of the blame for this each and every time. I'm sick and tired of it. What these people are doing is intentionally tearing this party apart because they want to secure government power. They want the federal government to become irreparably transformed away from a constitutionally endowed representative republic to some sort of frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist dystopia. No. Again, the key rests in something that has been with us since the very inception of this country some 235 years ago. That key, as I mentioned earlier in this program, as I have oftentimes mentioned on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that key is none other than the Constitution itself. But we're not hearing anybody talk about the Constitution other than Ted Cruz. God bless him for continuing to do it. We're certainly not going to hear Trump do it because he doesn't believe it. He doesn't support it. And, of course, we then have people like Trump ally Carl Palladino who threatened to hang never-Trump delegates. What? We now support lynch mobs in the Republican Party? That was always a hallmark of the Democrat Party, going back to their foundation of the Ku Klux Klan. That was their shtick. But no, we now see that the mafioso quafioso is bringing that sort of twisted mentality into the rank and file of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. It would be laughable if the consequences weren't so dire and this country weren't in the midst of not only an identity crisis, but a slew and litany of constitutional crises that have been worsened by the disastrous 2 terms of this Barack Hussein Obama regime. And make no mistake about it, folks, Trump would be a 3rd term of the Barack Hussein Obama regime, just as Hillary Rotten Clinton would be a 3rd term for this disastrous regime. And that's what we tried to warn you about. That's what we have been warning about for so long now. But the Lion Branch Trumpidians, they don't want to hear it. The graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, they're not going to report on that. They're not going to talk about that because, again, it goes against their propagandistic Fabian socialist agenda. That is just despicable. Yet here we are. That's what we're facing. And we can overcome it. We can overcome it by showing them that we are who we are, and that we cannot be taken for granted, and that we are not just going to bow down and capitulate to some bad haircut in an empty suit who's trying to take over the party. Why would we embrace political suicide? It makes absolutely no sense to anyone who has a modicum of sense, to anyone who has a firing brain cell, which clearly is neither Sarah Palin nor is it the mafioso quafioso himself, Donald Trump, or is that John Barron or John Miller? Whichever one he's embracing now. And then we see that Trump is, again, not truthful. He's never been truthful. Remember, he came out and he said that he was going to have Tim Tebow speaking at the Republican National Convention. Except Tim Tebow came out and said it was not true. Why does Trump feel it's necessary to lie? We know that he's not going to get any true constitutionalists other than Cruz, who is not going to endorse him. At least that's what his own statement said, to speak. And it's not going to be in support of him. So he goes out and lies. Tries to make it look as though he's got all these bigly great and wonderful people to come out and support him, to speak in support of his candidacy, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. He is a pathological liar. I doubt he even knows when he's telling the truth. I don't think he could recognize the truth if it came up and bit him in the posterior. That is a laughable situation that we face right here and right now as I speak into this microphone. And for what good is it going to do? What is lying about all this crap going to do for us? Not a blessed thing. Not a blessed thing. Because they are doing what they can to try and make us feel dejected, to try and make us feel as though we are endangered and extinct. But we cannot sell our souls for 30 pieces of dandruff. That's just not a good idea either. And when Trump and Pence come out and continue to say that Black Lives Matters knows that the system's rigged, and it was more Trump than anyone who really said that he understood that because the system's rigged against him. Well, we see that in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, there has been another Black Lives Matters inspired killing of law enforcement officers. This has got to stop. We have got to get back to a modicum of sanity in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, and we damn sure cannot do that while Trump is masquerading as a Republican. Remember that the original iconography of the Fabian Socialist Organization, or the Fabian Socialist Society, that traces its origins back to 19th century Great Britain, was that of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, it's time we go wolf hunting. It's time that we cull the pack and bring this political movement back to sanity. Now, of course, that is always easier said than done, but it must be done. And of course, we do have to say that the Never Trump fight is far from over. And one person who has truly impressed me throughout all of this is Utah Senator Mike Lee. He says it's far from over. Thank God we have people with backbones, people like Mike Lee, people like Ted Cruz. These are the people that truly stand up for what matters, people like Ben Sass. We will not betray them because they're standing up for us. They are the ones that are going out on the limb to do their job. They're doing what they were elected to do, to represent their constituents and to stand up for the supreme law of the land, which pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2, is none other than the Constitution itself. Now, why this is so difficult for so many people to figure out is beyond me. It's not rocket surgery. Ben Carson does not need to be wheeled in from whatever insane asylum that he's decided to haunt now. You see, sometimes the answers are so simple. They're just right in front of our face, that it makes it impossible to believe that it's there, that it could be that simple. But folks, it is that simple. They are the ones that try and add the layers of complexity. They are the ones that can't figure it out because they don't want to figure it out, because they want to adhere to this twisted agenda that is diametrically opposed to the true hopes, dreams, aspirations, and desires, as well as consent and will of the American people. They are the ones that put us in this untenable situation. And we're tired of it. Each and every election cycle, it just keeps getting worse because we keep buying into the erroneous notion that voting for the lesser of two evils is going to break this cycle. That is almost like this old adage that says that the definition of insanity is repeating the same course of action over and over again, expecting a different outcome, expecting a different result. That defines the gutless opposition party. That defines what the gutless opposition party has been doing in each successive election cycle, and each time the candidate or supposed nominee has been getting worse and worse, growing further and further to the left. Well, the insanity has to stop because there is far too much at stake. But perhaps what we are suffering from now is that there was a boy who cried wolf. Every time it's, oh, the leftist candidate is so god-awful that we can't ever survive. And don't get me wrong, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, would never support one of these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists. They are indeed terrible. But It's like sitting there trying to decide whether you want to get shot in the left eye or the right eye. You're going to die either way. Which one do you want to be shot through? For me, I don't want to be shot through any of them. I want to do what's necessary to put this country back onto the path to prosperity. And we're certainly not going to do that through shallow, hollow, empty, and meaningless platitudes like "Make America Great." And as we have so oft times reiterated, America never stopped being great in the first place. And how can you make it great, arguendo, or meaning arguing, that we even give you credence that America has ceased being great, if you don't even know what made America great in the first place? You see, that is the great disconnect. That is the great disconnect that they are unwilling to overcome, or are even unwilling to admit even exists. What a facade, what a farce, what a load of garbage. And this is supposed to be how we're going to defeat Hillary Clinton? This is what we have to be our champion against Clinton? And certainly Mike Pence may appear as a conservative, but he's a squish, just as Donald J. Trump is a squish. He has betrayed every position that he's ever held. That's not going to unite the party. That's not going to put us in a position of strength. Just as we warned it wouldn't. Just as we have said it wouldn't. But no, the Lion Branch Trumpidians, they didn't want to listen to us. They thought we were just a bunch of kooks. They thought we were the establishment, which is laughable. We were out lambasting El Jefe Jebe Bush from our first episode, which aired on September 11th of 2015. We called Narco Rube EIEIO a traitor, because in a way, and in fact, he really was. And just, you know, he too is now saying that he's going to support Trump. At least he was. We never know where he's really going to stand, but, you know, that was, I'm not going to run for the Senate. Okay, I'm going to run for the Senate again. I hope he loses. I hate to say that, but I do. Because he is part of the problem. He is what gave rise to these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists that are hell-bent on destroying this country, getting the foothold in power that they have. And he has allowed the mafioso quafioso to get here by refusing to bite his pride, to swallow his pride, and join up with Cruz when he had the opportunity to do so. Which makes it clear that he has no love for the United States of America. That is where we are now, folks. That is what we have to overcome. And it's no easy task to do that. It's no easy task to overcome all of this garbage, all of this refuge, all of this nonsense that has been foisted down our throat against our will. And we're sick and tired of it. So we have been for so long now. These people are treacherous. And you know, folks, there's a new wrinkle for a potential candidate to step up and challenge Trump. Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, Dr. Coburn, who has always been a staunch small government type, has said that if he gets the nomination, he'd take it. Now, we would prefer Cruz, but we would take Tom Coburn. We would take anybody who is a principled constitutionalist that understands the proper scope and application of government as is mandated by the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared Constitution. You know, it's just going back to basics. That's what we have to do in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. If we go back to basics, we can begin to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We can begin to rekindle and restart the American dream. We will be able to fire off that American Renaissance that will allow us to arise from the ashes like a phoenix and become unstoppable yet again. Now, what's funny is there are some who are sitting here saying that having Pence chosen to be Trump's running mate is a bit of a trap for the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, because he is so milquetoast that they won't attack him, and that will somehow be a lure to bring the conservative movement in. Really? This guy who betrayed his principles is not going to bring us in. That is the laughable lie that the Lion Branch Trumpidians want to keep telling themselves so that they can weep themselves to sleep tonight as they crawl into their cardboard boxes. It's just not going to work. It's not realistic. It's not fathomable. It's not practical. This is a very depressing election cycle. There's no other way to refer to it. What they are doing to us is attempting to demoralize us by pitting us against one another, hopelessly dividing us. Which is why Jeremy and I have oft-times speculated, and the great weight of the evidence clearly seems to indicate, that Trump was a plant by Hillary to do this. He has no desire to win. It's, as we've been warning about ever since the primary process, he dismantled all of his infrastructure in the various caucus and primary states that he won throughout the primary process, meaning that he's already facing an uphill battle when he goes into the general election. And then he sits there and he says he doesn't have any money when he's been funneling money in to pay his salary and that of his family, his kids, who couldn't even vote for him in the New York primary because they weren't registered Republicans, they were Democrats. His own attorney was a Democrat and couldn't vote for him. It's laughable. It's a poorly scripted soap opera. It's why we really shouldn't be turning to some reality TV star who has so many skeletons in his closet that it ought to be referred to as a cemetery, that walk-in cemetery. And yet, again, they'll try and lay the blame at our feet, just as they always do, because we're their favorite scapegoats. They think we'll just sit down and take it. They take us for granted. To hell with them. To hell with them. If they really want to earn our vote, then get out there and earn it. Get rid of Trump. Dump Trump. Otherwise, you can go Farouk yourself, because we're not going to tolerate it. And no, that's not being suicidal. Being suicidal is attaching ourselves to Donald J. Trump and Mike Pence, the basic Laurel and Hardy of conservatism, because they're not conservative. They fulfill every stereotype of the left. And it's going to be hung around our necks like an albatross. You see, all conservatives, they really are. The war on women, the war on this, the war on that, blah, 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 blah. And no, this isn't embracing political correctness, but if you're going to fight political correctness and its twin cancerous doctrine of moral relativism, you can't do it in a stupid fashion. But Trump's doing it in a stupid fashion because half the time Trump embraces it. Look at the stance he's taken with respect to the so-called transgender bathroom issue. Don't let that one escape your memory, folks. Don't let any of the things that Trump does, any of his consistently inconsistent positions, ever escape your mind. It's, like we said, going back to the primary process, the only litmus test that matters is that of the Constitution. That's the only one that matters. But they don't care. They just don't care. Going back to Pence and his rather lackadaisical immigration record, we know that in 2006, at least according to Conservative Review, he was one of the ones that pushed George Bush on supposed immigration reform. Then, in 2013, he signed into law a bill that lessened the restrictions on illegal aliens being ineligible for in-state tuition rates at Indiana state colleges and public universities. So you see, he's already taken a position against his constituents. He's already betraying his oath of office. He's already betraying the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people. Maybe this is a match made in heaven for the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists. Maybe this is the ticket to success for them. But it's certainly not going to bring us a win. It's not going to bring conservatives back into the fray. Because we're sick and tired of being betrayed. What the Republican Party is doing is showing that they are disloyal. They are dishonest. They are deceitful. They are backstabbing rats. Sarah Palin is the rat, not us. She is a true retard Alaskan trumpet. And I want nothing to do with her, and nobody with a modicum of sense wants to have anything to do with her. This must be overcome. So let's see. Pence was also just amazing with respect to a conservative career when he proved to be a progressive technocrat and not a conservative, as he shifted so many of the policies in Indiana to state centralized control, government control. That's what they're about. That's why Trump supports him, and that's why it would be a dream ticket for them. It's because it's not about us. It's not about conservatism. It's not about being loyal adherents to the Constitution, which is the only thing that we're called upon to swear allegiance here in the United States. Yet if you think back to the primary process, Trump was having his voters go out and claim that they were going to swear allegiance to vote for him. That's straight out of a fascist playbook there. This isn't what Americans do. This isn't what someone vying for the highest office in the land of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours would come to do if he was serious about upholding our traditions and institutions. Trump doesn't give a damn about any of that, and neither does Pence. You see, that's where we are now. Pence is no recompense for Trump. So dump Trump to get real recompense. You see, that's where we have to go. That's what we have to do if we are going to get a modicum of sanity here. We cannot back down and support something that is diametrically opposed to all that we hold near and dear. And we have been saying that for so long, it's just they choose to ignore it. They choose to believe that we don't mean it. And they do so at their own great detriment and to their own peril. And I'm not going to shed any tears of sympathy for them when they come crawling on their knees and saying, you're not supporting Trump. Was it vote for Hillary? It's your fault. It's your fault. You have blood on your hand. Go to hell. You brought this on yourselves. We said that. And we've said that for a very long time here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. And don't think we were joking about that, because we weren't. We were absolutely serious about that. You chose to disregard it. And we told you that you were choosing to disregard it at your own peril, and that we here do hold you accountable for your words, actions, and deeds. Just as we hold ourselves accountable for them. Just as we expect you to hold us accountable. Which is why we say never take what we say here at face value. We want you to be empowered. Look into it for yourself and see whether the great weight of the evidence supports what we're saying or not. By doing so, you are embracing the true character, heritage, and spirit of the United States of America. And that is what it is going to take. That is what it must take if we are to ever bring this country back from the brink of ruination. Now, you remember how we just said that Pence had been a squish with respect to illegal aliens, how he had been one of the ones pushing George W. Bush to foist amnesty upon us back in 2006, 10 years ago. Well, now he's coming out and saying that he absolutely supported building a wall on the southern border and that absolutely Mexico would pay for it. He was also asked to defend his vote for the Iraq War by the media. And that's funny. It's funny because Trump is against that. But maybe Trump will selectively be for it at certain times. Selectively think it's a good idea. Who knows? This entire election cycle could honestly be called the post-truth election cycle. We've got liars vying for the top of both of the mainstay political parties. And it's disgusting. And the only way that we're going to bring this country back to a modicum of sanity is to reject those that would do this. To reject those who would lie. Directly tell us a bald-faced lie to our faces, and do so without even cracking a smile or smirk or some sign of their true devious, dark, and twisted machinations, their true attempts to pull the political wool over the eyes of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, we the people. Why is it that we have turned to some messianic figure that is riding down from Providence on a quaff-shaped cloud, pouring dandruff-flavored maple syrup on everybody, trying to convince us that he's a conservative while still saying that it's the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party, and that we don't need true party unity? Oh, gosh. How can people that are true principled conservatives even support him? And don't give me this crap, well, he's better than Hillary. Learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Learn to stand for something, not just against something. Stop using Hillary as a crutch. Give me some intellectual reason as to why Trump is good. Show me where, and I'm taking this from my first officer, Jeremy Grapenden, where in the Constitution are Trump's policies? Where in the Constitution are they, and how do they not violate the Constitution? When you can do that, maybe, just maybe, I'll reconsider my position on the mafioso quafioso. Here, I'll give you a hint. Trump's policies can be found in Article 9, Section Existent, Clause 0, right next to the bovine excrement clause. It's just not there. Because as we have so oft times reiterated, Trump claimed on multiple occasions that he never read the Constitution from cover to cover because he found no value in it. A man who finds no value in the Constitution has no place vying for the highest office in the land, which is basically created and endowed with its authority by the clear and concise language that's contained within the 4 corners of the United States Constitution. Therefore, we already know that he has this Trump-talitarian strain in him, and Pence is not going to stop that. So what's to stop him from running ramshot over it, just like Hillary Rodham Clinton, just like Barack Hussein Obama, who, by the way, Trump praised back in 2009? Why do they close their eyes to the evidence? Why do they close their eyes to reality? Because they are the Lion Branch Trumpidians. They don't want to acknowledge the truth. They don't want to see what's there for them to see, and they will continue to allow this country to be endangered because it would be a continuation of this disastrous Barack Hussein Obama regime. And of course, it's funny, Trump Pence 2016 TP, toilet paper. They already had to trash their first campaign logo that had a T penetrating a P because of the imagery that gave and because of the great amount of ridicule that it met on all of the avenues of social media. Boy, who didn't see that one coming? Honestly, who didn't see that one coming? This is just beyond belief. This entire 2016 presidential election cycle is just beyond belief because it is so far out of the norm. And it's not that we don't get it, like Rush Limbaugh keeps repeating into that golden dandruff-covered microphone of his. Maybe he needs to turn up his cochlear implant so that he can hear the truth. The truth is this. The United States of America is a constitutionally endowed representative republic that bases its sovereignty in the people. That's how it was founded 235 years ago That's how we were defined 235 years ago, and because it's based on the natural law tenets, it's just as applicable today as it was 235 years ago, as God willing it will be 235 years from now as I speak into this microphone. But it requires that we believe that. It requires that we remember that. It requires that we don't sell out our principles. Come hell or high water, we must be resolute. I know that's difficult for the Lion Branch Trumpidians to understand, because their great and fearless leader has not once embraced a consistent position, other than being consistently inconsistent. But that does not make a good leader. That does not bring this country to a tenable situation. It certainly doesn't bring us any closer to resolving the great magnitude and torrent of problems that face us. And of course, as we have so oftentimes reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, those problems are all rooted in a distancing from and a divorcement from the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the United States Constitution. But Trump doesn't get that. And Reince Priebus is still out there trying to say that Trump's going to change. Somehow he must be looking into some crystal ball. Or maybe he's just smoking crystal meth. Who knows? But he's certainly not representing me. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and probably say that he doesn't represent our cherished listening passengers and audience members. No, he's disconnected from reality, just like all of the Lion Branch Trumpidians are. And they're going to try and foist this one on us. And then they're going to try and blame us for it. Well, they can go straight to hell. I have no qualms about telling them that. It is time that we, in our capacity as popular sovereigns, put our foot down and say enough is enough. No, you cannot have our party. No, you cannot strip and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. No, you cannot transform us into some sort of Fabian socialist dystopia. Because we're not going to stand for it. We're not going to tolerate it. That's not who we are. That's not what we stand for. It's not what we represent, and it never has been. And God willing, it never will be. Because we are committed to the Constitution. The Constitution is what made this country great in our relatively brief yet illustrious history. It's why the United States Constitution is the longest contiguous or uninterrupted running constitutional document in the entire course of human events. And the fact that Donald Trump doesn't get that and doesn't see value in it, and the fact that Pence wants to just ignore that as well, by pushing for Common Core education, by being a squish on immigration, and then by going out and lying about his past positions on it, that sort of intellectual disingenuousness, that won't be tolerated. Not anymore. We're sick and tired of it. And the Republican Party, if it wants to retain its vitality and viability, if it wants to remain relevant, it needs to stop embracing these anti-constitutional candidates. It needs to stop ignoring the will of the people. It needs to stop lying and saying that Trump got the vast majority of the votes, when in fact, because it was split by 16 candidates, most of whom were pushed up there by the detente wing. They need to stop saying that Trump has the majority when in fact he doesn't. They need to stop pushing for a tyranny of false unity, and they need to start listening to us and just quit sweeping us aside. Quit with this dilettantic bovine excrement where you try and say that we just don't know what we're talking about. Yuck, 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 yuck. These little buck-toothed bastards don't know what they're doing. Go to hell. Because we're tired of it. And there will be hell to pay. There will be. Because we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, we are the new resistance. We will fight you at every corner, because you have shown yourselves to be nothing more than frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists. Oh, and for Paul Manafort, who sits there and says that the delegates just have to vote along with the states, Paul, I know a lot of things confuse you, and I know that you were so busy on your knees in Russia. Let me bring you back to reality. The United States of America is a representative republic. Delegates are part of the Republican process. In fact, the entire purpose of the convention is to prevent the party from selecting a candidate that would be an unmitigated disaster. Oh, I don't know, a candidate much like this one that wears a bleached skunk pelt on the top of his head and swings around, dances around like the mafioso, quaff waffler that he is. But you see, it doesn't matter to people like Pence. Pence, who was the head of the RNC for Romney and for McCain. Hey, Pence, how come you can't win? What's the deal here? Why can't you figure out that the common denominator is you keep pushing candidates who are not true conservatives? Why is it that you just seem to have so much trouble figuring out that non-conservatives cannot win? You can't out-Democrat the Democrats. Oh, but you know, it's unchristian of us to do this. That's what you say, and then you do the same thing to Hillary Clinton. Folks, as I've said before, it would be laughable if the consequences weren't so dire. It would be laughable if we could escape it. But we can't. But we can damn sure hold them accountable for it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We will not back down. We won't. Because these people are the ones that will have brought Hillary Clinton's victory. Mark my words. And then they will try and lay this at our feet. And they will try and blame us. And the vitriol will be stepped up because that's all they know how to do, because they can't admit the truth. But we will. We will pour the elixir of truth on them. And then we will ignite it and pour feathers on it, if necessary, to make them wake up. To all of these disillusioned conservatives that followed the tune of the Pied Piper, do you not remember what the end of that story was about? He was walking off with the children when they couldn't pay the political price to end the posterity of that town. That is what Trump is, with the posterity of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. If you allow Trump to be the nominee, you can kiss any viability of the Republican Party goodbye. And guess what? Good riddance at that point. Good riddance at that point. Why do we have to keep bailing this party out when this party has stomped all over us, just attacked us, has insulted us, and taken us for granted time and again ad nauseum? Enough. Quit it. You do not have the power, the capacity, or the wherewithal to continue to foist this upon us. It's over. Rinse and repeat us, it's over. Donaldoff, it's over. Pinsy Wincy, go back to your spider hole and stay out of the way. Because the real Americans will take this country back. Come hell or high water, we will return to strict adherence to the principles and the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared United States Constitution. As long as there is air in our lungs, as long as we have breath, and as long as we spread the knowledge of the Constitution and for all that it represents, they will never defeat us. That is the truth they don't want to realize. That is the truth they don't want you to realize. They don't want you to realize just how powerful you actually are. And that's what we are dedicated to here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. We are dedicated to empowering you because guess what, folks? This country doesn't belong to Donald Trump. Our Constitution's not for sale. It doesn't belong to rinse and repeat us. It belongs to us in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, and we need to take it back. And we can. because only we are endowed with the authority to do that. Only we have the God-given responsibility to do so. And the only way that we can safeguard our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights is to embrace the duty, obligation, and above all, responsibility that attaches and couches with those rights, to proactively maintain and safeguard those rights. That's what we must do. But to do that, we must have this knowledge of our Constitution and of our rights, and we must defend them. And that's exactly how we can get this country back, by standing up for our constitutional rights. Remember that one of the aspects of the Constitution is you can gather together to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's what I consider the Free the Delegates movement all about. That's what it's always been about. But they're the ones that try and frame it as though we're the totalitarians. It's sheer projection, just like every other time that these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists do that crap. Well, it's not going to fly. Certainly not over the friendly airwaves with us here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Now, with that said, it's time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. She has not selected a vice presidential candidate or a vice stewardess to be with her. She's just there to serve you alcohol. As always, folks, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. I invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have either here at our YouTube page, our Google Plus page, or our Facebook page. And on top of that, I invite you to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, folks, that's at Radio Aviation EX. And there you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, our Blogspot account, which includes audio blogs, which are chock full of useful information, and then, of course, our Cafe Press account, where you can find all sorts of trinkets and goodies with our regular logo on it and our first-class passenger logo on it, from drinking glasses for that last round of alcohol, and hats, clocks, watches, tote bags, phone covers, laptop covers, you name it, it's there. You can find something at a good price. As always, folks, thank you for joining us on our flight over the friendly airwaves, where we leave you with an indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment as always. We will see you next time. Do take care.